In this video, so if you can guess what YouTuber that comes from, put it down below in the comments section. I wanted to copy it. I don't know why. I listen to him all the time. Anyway, so MotoPress decided to take and sponsor us once again. We have another sponsor, which is awesome. I love getting sponsors, especially one that is a free sponsor, which means that there's no cost involved with this. If you've never heard of the press Getwid, it's a Gutenberg plugin, and they basically challenged me to basically build a website with it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a website in this tutorial, and I'm going to take you through it from start to finish, how to do it. But it's going to be an over-the-shoulder, so you're going to see the screen more than you're going to see me, and I'm going to have talk, I'll talk over it and all of that. So let's get started. So here is the block by MotoPress. It's Getwid. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. But this is what they kind of wanted me to basically build a website with. And in all true and fairness, I had never built a website with this to begin with. So this is going to be my first look at this block builder. But I gotta say, just going from their page and looking at what is involved with this, it's got some really, really great stuff that's going on with it. They've got all these different blocks. These are some demo pages where they're showing you what it can do. But it's just got a lot of blocks. And part of the best things is that it's absolutely free. There's no pro version from what I could see. I could be wrong, but I don't see any. So, maybe later on they're thinking about releasing a pro version, which would be cool. I'm always a fan of that. But it's literally got 40 plugin blocks for free. And some of these blocks, surprising enough, I've started to realize are much better than the blocks I'm using on one of my current sites, which is wpbuilderhelper. I've got two other block libraries with Gutenberg, and I don't know. I may be replacing it with this because after looking at some of the stuff, one of the things that I ran into that I really thought was cool was that they had this advanced table. And, anybody knows that tables are a big thing right now. People are doing Amazon tables, and they're doing, just different tables all over the place. So the fact that you have a table and you can use a table that's responsive is pretty cool. And I think that that's what's really neat is the responsiveness of it, because this table actually shrinks and all of that. I like that. That's really unique in tables. Most tables are very static, and they don't do that. So I like seeing that they've got some responsive tables here. They've also got some interesting stuff. They've got video pop-ups and things like that, which is cool. They've got a contact form, which is pretty standard. I think most people are trying to do a contact form, but I think for our website, I'm not sure what this is going to dive into. I'm going to look into the back end just to see, but I think for ours, like I said, I would rather go with the previous sponsor because their contact form is very easy and it's very cool to use. So I think for this website, I'm going to be using that. But you can see they've got, icons that you can use, and then you've got an icon box, which is basically this, and then you've got an image box. I love the different boxes. I love the fact that you can use images, icons, whatever. It's very, very interesting the way they do that. They've also got social links, which is also helpful when you don't want a big bloated plugin tearing up your social links. You've got a banner, which I'm not exactly sure what that's weird. Interesting. So it's got oh, that's cool. That's really cool. So they've got some very unique things in here. This banner section, I really like this. I definitely want to integrate this onto the website because I really like the banner. They've got an image slider, so of course, your standard typical slider. That's par for the course. This button group is very unique too. So you can see that you can have buttons, you can have them stacked. I like the fact that they thought of this. Some people, they want more than one button, and the fact that this has up to, it looks like you could do up to 3, maybe you can even do 4. We'll have to get in and play with it. I like the fact that they've done that. They've also got this really unique stacked gallery that you can do, where you can do this type of presentation or even something like this. That's very unique. Just make your website stand out just a little bit more than it currently does. They've got some Instagram blocks and everything like that. And then advanced headings, where I think you can use, Google fonts and any style or color font. Some toggles, tabs, accordion, recent post. The recent post is interesting. I didn't see that. So this is like recent post of your blog post. That's pretty cool. That's hard to find. The recent post is not something that's always in every single section. What is this section? Wait, let me go. I did not see this before. Oh, wow. So they've got I guess this is just a section of a Gutenberg that contains customizable layout. Oh, cool. Wow. So the sections, it looks like, okay, that's cool. I can get behind that. So you can use, similar to, it looks like you use sections to basically divide everything. But you can use, like, the what do they call those? The SVGs, basically, to make this look more appealing with, some interesting stuff. So that's cool. That's awesome. I was wondering if they had that, but I also see section with video. Okay, so you can do a section with video. Very cool. Section with YouTube. So this has got YouTube on it. Cool. Very cool. Section with a slider. Okay. And then section with a gradient. All right, cool. Very cool. So Google Maps, I feel like that's pretty standard. You've got a text slider here. You've got basically everything that you would need to start any kind of, wait, what is this post grid? I keep seeing more stuff. So this looks similar to the get post earlier, but it looks like it's more of a grid layout. And this is a carousel, obviously. That's cool too. It'd be great for a blog, post slider. This is really good for a blog. People always want post sliders and things like that, where they can show off their content. Progress bars. So this is basically used to show, a lot of people like using this for showing how many jobs they've done, how many things they've taken on. Pricing list, pricing box, that's pretty standard. And then there's this image heat map. Okay, very interesting. I'm definitely going to find a way to integrate this because the heat map is unique. I want to see how that works with the tooltips. I think that would be very, very fun to play with. Content timeline, another unique thing that a lot of Gutenberg builders do not have is this content timeline. That's very cool. And we got a countdown, a MailChimp. I wonder if they're going to have MailChimp block connects to any MailChimp subscriber. Okay, so if you had MailChimp, it'd be cool if they had other people who do mail besides just MailChimp. That would be interesting. Table of contents. It's pretty standard. I feel like everybody's got a table of contents, but there's some really, really good stuff on this. So just looking at this, you can see some typography, and then they've got a blog page, so you can see what a blog page looks like. But so far, I'm impressed. Just looking at what I'm seeing, you could definitely build a whole entire Gutenberg website with this. There's no issue about that. There's so many different things that you could use, and you can probably use them in much different ways that it's not going to be hard to do that. So I can't wait to jump into this and just see how to start building that. So without further ado, let's jump in and let's get started. So I realized after I had done this that basically I had screwed up. My sound was off and there was a lot that was going wrong with it. So in essence, I wanted to just go over what I was doing in this part of the video. So it's very simple. All I was doing was going through the template library. I went through Elementor's, Oxygen, and Brizzy's template library, basically looking for a good template that we could use for this website. So I'm going to be doing an animal website, and also sped this part up because it was just too long. I don't want this to be a super long video because building building a website is already super long at this point, so I just don't see the point in going through and kind of dragging this out and making you have to take and watch all of this. There were definitely some things I liked about it. I liked the watercolor portion of the website. There was a header. This header I really enjoyed. I liked the fact that it had like an overlay on it, and then it had these 4 boxes below. I just liked all of that. I thought it was very, very unique. There's just something about it, the way they merged all the colors together. It's very, very well done. Congrats for Brizzy for making that. Also, like this portion, I like the box and the fact that they used this box. There's a lot you can do with that on other websites, and I think that that was very cool. Also like the color boxes, and I just like the stylized version of this and how they basically had this set up. Very good imagery in like some of these templates. So the thought process is, rather than reinventing the wheel, we'll take some of the things that actually work for this Gutenberg builder and we'll include them into this builder. And I basically had a bunch of different notes. You know, I like the way the box shadow worked. This was a template from Oxygen. I like the imagery that it used. I like these little different boxes. Not sure if we'll be able to do that, but I thought it was very cool. Also like the fact that it just had some good balance to it. This was my favorite out of all of them. This is the one that I think I'm going to end up using the most. You know, for our animals / daycare, whatever it's going to be. I liked the way this looked. I liked the different colors. I liked how authentic it looked. I liked all the different imagery and everything, and just everything flowed really, really well. Also liked the fact that it had the logo at the very top, but then it had the logo again in the middle. And so that's all it had. It didn't have a button. It didn't have sell this. It was just the logo of the company. And then each page, I thought it would be cool to do, like, rather than have one color, I thought it'd be really cool to have each page as a different color. I thought that was just something that looked very, very unique, and I'd also like to take and do that. So that's just another thing that I was thinking of while I was sitting there writing notes and just trying to figure out where I was going to go with this. Point being that you can take a lot from different page builders, and you should. And it's a very good idea to take and look at this and just go through it and take those ideas that you really like. You don't have to completely rip off the page builder, but you can definitely go through their template library and look through it and kind of pick something that you like, whether it be colored boxes, a certain shadow type, or just the way that they do things that just looks very, very professional. And that's something that you can definitely do with Gutenberg. So one thing you're going to notice as I go through here is I've definitely sped up this timeline. I struggled for a while doing the colors of this project just because I wanted something vibrant, and I fought back and I could never find anything that I want. I was experimenting with browns, and that really wasn't going as well as I would have liked. So instead of using browns, I went with a different vibrant color path. I'm not sure if I ever show it in here. I think that I kind of edited that out just because I knew that this video was going to be super long, and I was trying to make sure that it was cut down into a length of time under about 2 hours. So I had dabbled with browns and grays, and when I looked at the color palettes, I just wasn't impressed with it. So in a second, you're going to see this switch over to where I picked more vibrant colors. That's what I was looking for. And eventually I was trying to show you the actual color palette, and I just couldn't figure out where it was to actually show you, but it's all right. It is what it is. You'll see me as I go into this next section. I'm starting to build the website. I'm using Blocksy, of course, as my builder of choice. I like using Blocksy. It's one of my better builders that I enjoy a lot more than other builders. And so, themes, I should say, and I was using it as just a base, and you can see I'm playing with the logo. And I don't notice off the second here, but the logo is actually incorrect. There's a font issue with it, and I didn't convert the fonts to curves, so I'm going to go back and fix that shortly. But for right now, you're just going to watch me basically input the colors. You'll see the different colors I chose. There's a blue, a kind of like a pink a hot pink, there's a yellow, and then there's green and kind of like a beige of sorts, something that's serves for a background, just something that's a little bit better than the white. I'm sure I probably could have made it white, but white and black websites are so plain right now. I wanted to do something that looked a little bit more colorful. Going back to the vineyard example that we were using before, that's what I wanted to use. It's something that was just going to stand out a lot more than what was already there. And so for me, it was picking some colors that actually match. So right now you can see I'm kind of going through and I'm actually picking the colors that I think would work well with the links. And really this is more of an art than a science. You just pick which you think works. For me, I wanted the yellow, the yellow that you're going to see, so you can see that's the background color, and then I'm going to switch to the bright yellow later to kind of signify things that are sections of importance, like that I want to stand out. I didn't use the blue. I was tempted to use the red, but I thought the red was a little bit too harsh with the yellow background, so instead I just went with the yellow. It was kind of in the same color pattern, so to speak, kind of near the color that I used for the background, and I just enjoyed it more than I would have enjoyed having the red or the blue. The red or the blue would have made for an excellent, it makes for excellent links, doesn't necessarily make for an excellent section. So, you know, this is just me playing with the colors, playing with the styles, getting it to where it needs to be. So another important thing that I should point out to this with this video is that I make a lot of mistakes. A lot of this video is trial and error, and so it's playing with the different colors, it's playing with the different shapes. You're going to see me change my mind quite a bit, and that's part of the web design process. While I did do a lot of the background of this on paper, and it doesn't come up as professional as I would like it, at the end of the day, I was happy with the way this turned out. I thought it was good once I actually get to the builder itself and past the theme. So, you know, I could have skipped all this, but I wanted to show you the full entire building process. And sometimes you go through a lot of trial and error, and that's very important as a designer or anyone else to take and use this trial and error to learn different things, because you don't learn anything until you start building. So even building fake projects for people, you learn things, you know, stuff that you probably should do, or stuff that you can do that maybe you didn't think that was possible. I definitely learned a lot with this. So for the most part, a good majority of this is just, you know, me building out the header and footer, and then we're going to get to the inside section. That's where things start to get interesting. That's where we're using Getwid. And I learned a lot with Getwid. Before I even started, I didn't do very much research. I knew what they were, and I knew who was in charge of them. But I didn't know a whole lot about the Gutenberg builders. I haven't had a chance to play with all of them, and when I got into Getwid, I was very impressed. Long before this video ever even gets to that part, I'm going to tell you the Getwid plugin is impressive, especially from the standpoint that it's a free plugin. So you're going to see that a bit later, but for right now, like I said, I'm just building out the basics of the header and the footer of this website. So now we're inside of the actual Gutenberg builder, and you can see me kind of looking through and trying to find exactly what I wanted. There was a lot of trial and error that came into this portion. I had some ideas of what I wanted to do. I had a lot of ideas of what I wanted to do, but one of the things I really liked was I really liked this imagery that was on the front of the wine section. I really liked the way it looked. I liked how professional it looked, and that's kind of what I wanted with this Getwid. This first section, I thought I could use one of their things, but part of the problem that you're going to see here is when I go to load it, and you'll see me load off and on, it wasn't the full section that I wanted. While it looks similar and I could have made it work, it wasn't until I started playing with sections that I really learned the power of Getwid. And it has these section tools that you can use, and you can throw things in them. This allows you to create some really complicated layouts that you normally could not make with Gutenberg. And like I said, it's just an impressive, the sectioned portion was just very impressive from the start. It has these 3 different options of, regular width, full width, and then this other option. And it was just very, very helpful to build everything in sections. And I think that that's the way they want to. So basically, for the most part, you would use sections and columns, and you can see me playing with the colors here. I didn't know if I liked the color of the reddish pink or if I would rather the blue. And at the end of the day, I decided to stick with the red. I thought that it worked better because that's what the headlines were going to be in. So I stuck with the red, and that's what I wanted to go with. But then you're going to see once I get inside here, I start looking at this, and this is where I'm like, oh, so I like the way this looks. I've got it full screen and all of that. And then I'm like, wait a second. At some point, I'm going to realize I could just rebuild this as a section itself and then throw some buttons in it and throw some heading text in it. And that's when I started realizing, I was like, wait a second. I could just take and throw this section in here, and it could just have an overlay on it similar to this. And yes, it's not going to have that little special zoom effect, but it could be very similar to the oxygen effect that we were looking at before. And that's when I really started seeing the power of this. I was like, okay, let's delete this, let's give it a certain height, let's set it up, and then let's go from there, and let's start playing with this and see what we can do. And I quickly realized, whoa, this is impressive. This is way more impressive than I thought, because you can build what you really want to build using the section and column tools. You start playing with things and you start learning that there's ways that you can just take and build these things out. So at this point I was looking for the 2 buttons section, and you can kind of see me playing with that. So I started playing with the buttons, and one thing I had that I would call some feedback for what could be done was the buttons were good, but I could never find a way to increase the size of them. I had this biggish text and they have these tiny buttons, and there really wasn't a way that you could increase the size. Like, I wanted a small button, a big button, a medium button. And you could do it with CSS, but the whole point of this was to do everything with Gutenberg. I wasn't interested in doing it like that. And so, you know, once again, this was just a trial and error. Another thing I ran into that I think is not so much, I'm not sure if I think it's a Gutenberg flaw more than it's a Getwid flaw, but when you go to hover over the buttons, you can see there's a hover, and maybe that just needs to be changed on the back end. I really didn't play with it enough. But once you change the background color, you'll notice you can't change the hover color unless there was something I was missing. And there could be something that I was just missing because, once again, I haven't built very many websites in Gutenberg, so I was learning from scratch just like you would expect me with every other video. However, I was impressed with all the options. There was just a ton of options that you get with Getwid, and like I said, for it being a free plugin, I just enjoyed it a lot. Now you can see right here I'm just playing with a regular headline. Later on you're going to see me go back and change that, and there's a reason for that. The headline tool is very powerful. Same thing with their button tool, it's just very powerful. I enjoyed using both of them a lot, and I think there's a lot of instances where you could use the headline and the button tool, and they just work really, really well. So in this next section, I definitely wanted to copy the bottom. I wanted to do something special with the bottom, and I played around with a lot of different things. I wanted to work with the shapes. I like the idea of having some waves. I tried a couple different things, but the waves seem to work pretty well for this kind of website. But I also wanted to have the next section that you're seeing I'm doing right now, where I'm building out the 3 columns. I wanted to overlay 3 different kind of images that were going to basically have some negative margin in them. And you kind of see me starting to play with some of this. I tried it a couple different ways. I tried to lay out with a picture, but I really liked the way that this looked. This type of thing that they have going here with this special element where you can go in here and you can do what you need to do, and it comes out looking beautiful. One of the things I really liked was that they had some custom stuff that was going on in here, where you could go in here and you can select some basic preset layouts, like just some things that look really cool. But I had kind of picked what I wanted, so I was going to go in and adjust each one of them exactly how I wanted. But I really liked the way that it worked. So like I said, you're going to see me kind of struggle here a little bit because I was trying to figure out the negative margins and trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. At first I was going to leave it below it, but once again I was like, no, I really want it to be negative, but I don't want it to be too negative. And one of the things that I dislike from a Gutenberg standpoint has always been the fact that Gutenberg has a really, really bad, I don't know how you would say it, I guess a really, really bad mobile to me. Like their mobile it just doesn't work very well. I've just never liked how the mobile works. But I was pretty impressed with this. I thought this was neat. I thought it worked well. It did what I needed it to do, just playing around with it, doing what I needed it to do. It was doing everything. It made the pictures look good. The pictures popped. They worked together, and it's just something very basic. I didn't want it to be too in the first section. I wanted there to be some distance between them, but I wanted it to kind of overlay. So it was the thought process of trying to play with both of them to get it to that point. But overall, I still enjoyed it. It was definitely a back and forth experience, but it was a good experience. So the next section, I will not lie, is one of my most hated sections. This section was a pain in the butt to produce. It was, at first I was going to make it into like a MailChimp section where someone could apply to a MailChimp thing. And then I kind of thought about it and I was like, no, I just kind of want like a call to action, like something very basic, like a big header and a button. You see me play with the colors here. I really struggled with getting everything organized in the middle and getting the margins kind of set. That wasn't the fault of Getwid. That was actually just my fault because, once again, I'm not as familiar with Gutenberg as I should be. But the fact is, at the very end of this video, you're going to see I kind of go back and I kind of change it and adjust it. And also change the text. This was another area where I should have used the advanced heading text. You know, one of the things I learned very quickly is if you're going to use any kind of heading, just use the advanced heading text. The advanced heading text in Getwid was just so good for taking and building any kind of heading that you wanted and making it look super special compared to what the regular headings would look like. So I enjoyed that a lot more. Also had some trouble lining up the button just because I wanted to get the button in the center. Once again, not the fault of Getwid, more the fault of myself and just not knowing all of the stuff with Gutenberg. So it was really a learning experience here, but then again, that's what this channel is about. That's what I was doing. So once again, you see me struggle a little bit here, but at the end of the day, it turns out pretty well, and I was pretty happy with it, with just having something that was like a call to action, just a section that essentially had like a little banner that's in the middle just to break up the monotony of some of the other sections that were above it, so it wasn't sitting on top of one another. So after I was done with this section, and you'll see that pretty much happen shortly, I wanted to move on to the next section, and I know I wanted to use another portion of what Getwid had in their arsenal. And one of the things I really wanted was this gallery tool that they had that I had kind of played with, where I was going to break out the page, I was going to do like a little list view, and and I wanted this gallery on the side because this gallery had so many good ideas of things that you could use. I mean, it was just a really good, it's a really excellent way of showing photos that's just kind of in Getwid as a default, and it's got like 8 different presets or 9 different presets. It's pretty amazing, and I think that the way that they did it is awesome. It makes a really professional looking image gallery, and it just came out. I thought it was excellent. I like the way that it came out. I thought it's easy for somebody who's brand new to taking and working with photos. If you're trying to overlap them, you're not having to do anything with negative margin. It's just a great thing to have, like from the start, where you have these images. And you'll also see I duplicated some of my images by accident when I was kind of testing this. So that's not, once again, that's a mistake of me. But I went in and I kind of wanted to just have it where, these dogs, they were going to be 3 dog pictures and they were going to overlap. And I just picked 3 that I had already not used before in the past. And I wanted to use them and just show how this would look inside of it. And I was just blown away at how good it looked. I went through most of the presets just to see if I could get it the way I wanted. So the first one is absolutely fine, but then you'll see I kind of played with the other ones, and they have all these different stacking orders that you can do, like they're stacking and you can choose one on top of another. I just really liked how fluid it was. Like it worked so well, and I was so happy with it. I was like, this is great for a photographer or anything like that. It would be it's a great Gutenberg tool to have, just to make, like I said, a section stand out a little bit more than it already does. Use a couple of photos and stuff like that, and bam, you've got a great looking section. So thought process here was a heading, some sample text, and then underneath I was going to have a kind of bulleted list. I tried using the icon. You'll see me use the icon in another portion shortly, where I use the icon and I think some text on the side of it. That didn't line up correctly. It might have lined up correctly on the front end, but it didn't line up correctly on the back end. So instead I just did it custom, and it ended up at the end of the day looking just fine. I didn't have any problems with it. It was a bit of a pain to align because I thought it would align a lot better. But once again, it still worked. So I used the Getwid icon to basically set this, and you can kind of see me searching, and I was kind of thinking, like, do I do a list post? How do I do this? And I'm trying to think of all the different tools that I could use at my disposal, because there's so many things. So I tried this first, and like I said, you'll see me kind of go through here, and I kind of play with it to try and get it to where I want. And it kind of looks right there, but for some reason later on, I don't know if it was just the font I picked or whatever, somehow it just didn't look right whenever I went on the front end. That's probably because it was supposed to have some text underneath it, or I made the icon too small. There was a number of things that I did wrong in this section. But the point being, once again, don't follow my example for this. I'm building this for the first time from scratch, so there's people who are better experienced at building with Gutenberg, but this was just me playing with it, giving you my first impressions and everything, and the stuff I really liked about it. I thought it could be helpful definitely if you were doing one of those normal type of breakout projects where you're trying to show off, like, hey, here's an icon and underneath it I'm going to put some text. I think that's what it's mainly used for, although you could still use it for this too. It looked a bit off because I didn't include the other text, and as you'll see in a second, you'll see what I'm talking about with it being off. So when I went to check, it was like it fell below the headings, and I didn't want that. And so later on, I just build it out from scratch. So you're going to see me do that in a second. So Getwid, at this point I was starting to look into the icons. They had a number of great icons that I could have used, and it was hard picking the right one for the icon that I wanted, but at the end of the day I ended up finding them. It took me a little while to go through them because they do have so many icons that you could use, and there was like a sort of a caching issue at some point that happened where it kept bringing up some random icons. But for the most part, it worked pretty well. I didn't have anything that I thought was wrong with it. It had a number of great icons that you could use for anything. A lot of the standard icons that you'd expect, logos and everything. The list is pretty extensive. Usually most icon packs are about 300 icons or so, and this just felt like a lot more. It felt like a wider variety of icons. So it was a lot to go through, but at the end of the day, it ended up working out well. I was trying to find icons that kind of fit the headlines that I was going to pick out. So I probably didn't have to waste as much time as I wasted here, but at the end of the day, I wanted it to be dog friendly, and I was trying to focus on those certain headlines that I specifically wanted. So communication headlines and things like that, as if this was a real site and you were really training a dog or doing something along those lines. So at this point, I start wrapping up a lot of the things. You're going to see me kind of start looking at the headings and things like that. But I also moved to the one section that's right above this section. It just wasn't really my favorite. It was a section that when I first started, I wanted to do a regular heading, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way it looked. I didn't like anything about it. There was something about it that just did not make me happy when I was looking at it. And I eventually decided to take and go with the advanced heading, which I should have done to begin with. I've learned my lesson, like I said before earlier in this video. When in doubt, use the advanced heading, because the features that are in there are so good that I would recommend you using it almost every time. It's totally worth it. There are very few times that I would think that I would actually not use the advanced heading. It was a much better thing. And I also start working, at some point you're going to see me, I'm starting to try and figure out what I want to do with the next section. So this section, I wanted it to be like almost like a pricing section per se, because I had played with a couple of different things. I was thinking of how I wanted to do it, whether I wanted to do like 3 rows or whatever, but I wanted it to be a pricing section. That was the general idea of it. At the very bottom of the page, I wanted to have the pricing for how much these spas would cost. So I was going to do 3 columns, and I kind of played with that because I didn't know how the pricing section actually worked within Getwid. So I wanted to see, like, did I want to do like a standard pricing section? And you see me here kind of adjusting things. This wasn't actually even, I was trying to think of how I was going to do this. It was a much longer process than I would have thought, but at the end of the day, once again, it comes down to experimenting. So I decided to take, and you'll see I jumped to this because I had already started working on it. Didn't hit the record button, and this was the idea. I like these bright colors, and I wanted to have them at the bottom. The biggest problem I found was that when I went into the standard view with these type of this type of section, I noticed very quickly that it would fall apart. There were it was either not tall enough or not showing exactly what I wanted it to show, which once again is not an issue with Getwid. It's more of an issue with the fact that it's sometimes hard to design in Gutenberg. Getwid actually made this process very easy. Overall, I was pretty happy with the pricing list that they had. They had a pricing, for, your name and your price and your $sign and your per month. And then you could include each and every little thing. I wish they would have added bullet points to this so that you could have bullet points on each one. But at the end of the day, this makes for a very quick pricing point part. And I didn't mind it. I thought it worked very, very well. When you take and you look at other pricing points, it includes everything. It would also be nice to have something on there. I didn't check the documentation, so once again, my fault. But if they had some kind of banner saying, best value, best buy, or something like that where you could customize it, that would be cool too. Something that would be across the top. But like I said, overall, I was still impressed by this, and I thought that this was an excellent way of creating just a simple pricing chart, not something super complicated, something real easy that you could pop out today without any problems whatsoever, and then take and start going on your website and start accepting money immediately using, PayPal or something like that. And that was the thought process. So you see me kind of playing with the colors here, trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. Eventually, towards the end of this, this does take a little while to get through. But eventually towards the end of this, you're going to see that I do all this and it's for naught, because at the end of the day, I just don't like the way it looks. And so I just kind of scrap it, and I use the standard feature that I used above, which I thought was just way better than what I had down below. This was cool and it would have looked good, but I kept thinking about mobile in the back of my head and what this would look like on mobile, and I still haven't even optimized this for mobile. And I just thought, oh my God, this is just going to be so hard to optimize for mobile because of the different section dividers and everything like that. And so I just kind of scrapped it. At some point soon, I'm just going to scrap it and I go with standard, typical kind of background, similar to what I had before with the waves, and it still looked good. It wasn't as good as that. I thought that stood out a lot more, even though it's just a pattern. But the waves ended up looking better to me in the end anyway, so it didn't really matter regardless. But I did enjoy the whole pricing block section of this. I thought it was very, very entertaining, and it was very fun and easy to use, and I just really liked it. So as you're about to see, I just got tired of the spacing issues, especially with the heading. It was just making me frustrated trying to get the heading in exactly the way I wanted it. Once again, it's no fault of Getwid. It's probably more of my fault, but it's interesting how WordPress needs to tighten up on the mobile view of how everything looks, because when you go out and you just view it, and even the desktop views, a lot of things can sometimes be off that look fine when you're designing in the builder itself, but then don't look as good on the front end when you're kind of using it and you're like, that wasn't really what I wanted. You know, you're trying to fight everything and you're trying to make everything look as nice as possible. And this is one of those scenarios where it just ends up being easier to do it some other way. So that's kind of what I did here. I mean, obviously, it's probably not the best iteration of it. There's probably better ways of doing this, but I just wanted it to stand out a little bit. And I like the way that the waves looked. I thought they looked pretty cool. The dividers in Getwid are very, very nice. They've got quite a bit of them, and they work very, very well. And so I wanted, a little bit more space, and that's what this is. I'm, tightening up this and trying to get it to a place where it's tight enough where we can kind of take and we can move on to other things. And I just want it tight. And so I'm going back in and I'm adjusting the margins and I'm adjusting everything. You'll see me adjusting headings at some point and just getting everything closer to where I want it to be, a little bit less off than it was before. And so it's constantly a back and forth, trying to see if something looks good or not, and then, playing with it on the front end, going to the back end, rinse and repeat until finally you get to a place where you're happy with the decision that you've made. So as we start on the two last sections, you'll see I made some minor changes. It was about us and contact us, and I didn't want to use that anymore. I really like smaller menu items, so I really liked about and contact. So I had an idea for these pages that I kind of drew up, and going back, I really should have done that with the main page. I probably would have taken less time. This video would have been a lot smaller, but in essence, I wanted to build a basically a three part layout on both the about page and the contact page. I wanted to use about the same header, but maybe a different color, something along those lines, messing with the, the slider, use a different dog, something like that. So it had a different header with a different color on each one, but it stayed consistent throughout. So same height and all of those same features. And I was impressed with the way it worked before, so I kind of wanted to do it again and do the same thing, even though the main page was a little bit more of a, I guess you could call it like a statement piece. The rest of the pages would essentially be pages that did other things. Right here, you see I'm actually going through their template section. I didn't talk about this very much because I just didn't want to use any of their templates. I wanted to build my own, but Getwid has a pretty decent template selection. For someone who's building a fairly simple site, it would be good to use. It's not a bad template selection. It's got a lot of different things that you can use in it, and I really didn't mind it. I thought it was pretty neat when I was going through it on the back end. But anyway, so you can see here that at this point I am doing just the heading and basically setting it up exactly like the other page. At one point, I'm going to go to the other page just to make sure it looks correctly as we're tying up these final two pages. So this next section was going to be a very basic section, but I still wanted it to have some visual interest. The thought was it was going to be two different sections, so I wanted to use one of Getwid's features, which is called People, where it basically has it's like a shortcut essentially. It's like a heading with some paragraph text and also an image. I had to go and grab the image because at one point I realized that I didn't have the image, so that's why you see that little cut right there. So I was just grabbing someone who is going to be our fictional owner of this website and going through and giving her a name and basically a title, coming up with stuff on the fly. Also use a character generator at some point, some API to generate some backstory to our WAGs, and basically just copy and paste it, which is what you see here. This was just a plain paragraph text, and I just wanted to use that as an example of something that I could do. Also added in the header, the advanced header, because once again, I like the advanced header. I'm very impressed by the advanced header. I thought it looks cool, and it just makes it easier to make something stand out a little bit more. So, I was very happy with that, and you can see I went through this section with ease. I mean, it took almost no time to basically build this. If you've already got some text or you've already got something, it works great. The next section was going to be a pretty simple section. It was going to be a testimonial section, and I wanted it to do like a 2-column testimonial where it was 2 people. So, that's how I did it. Went and found some images. The testimonial section is pretty cool too. I do wish that on the testimonial section they had something that says like testimonial here, because it just basically says write text here. And for the average person, they may not realize that the text on top is actually the text that's the quote. And then the bottom text next to the head is actually the name of the person. And then usually the text underneath that is usually their title or website or whatever you want to use in whatever format. I guess they leave it basically kind of blank so that you could write whatever you want to or use it however you want to. but it's still kind of nice to have some defaults to take and put in there, so you know, like, this is the quote, this is the person's name, because those things are probably not going to change, although I guess you could switch things around if you wanted to. It just seemed to work better that way. So I saved this, and then this page was basically done. There were a couple margins that I didn't like in this page, but overall, I was pretty happy with the way it turned out. It was very quick to build, very easy. As you can see, I'm getting much faster. And the bottom piece was a little bit different because apparently I deleted the section that it was in, or somehow screwed up and got rid of the section, and then it was just 2 columns, so I wasn't able to go back and select it, which is something that I was fighting with right here. So at this point, we're doing the contact, and this was going to be a very simple page. Same idea, basically a header and some other parts, 2 other pieces to it. So similar to the other page that we had just done, this was going to follow that same exact pattern of basically going through and adding in those certain things that we wanted to add in. But I wanted to pick a header that worked. And at first I realized, oh, I'm using the same dogs, and I realized I didn't scale these correctly. I was kind of hoping that these would work out, but I just picked a dog that I liked and used a different color, changed the opacity, and boom, you've got a similar enough heading, I would say, to the other ones. You know, add in the same waves and everything, and boom, you've got a heading that looks the same across all of them, although I was looking at some of the other shape features. So this page was going to be very simple. It was going to be a basic contact form using Getwid's contact form, which is very basic. It's not as impressive as one of the other forms that I had kind of talked about in the past, but I'm sure that they just built it so that somebody could basically throw together something that was very simple. It's not going to be something that you're going to want to use if you want a dedicated form with file uploads and things like that, but at the end of the day, it does get the job done. And at the very bottom here, I wanted to add in basically like a Google form. You're going to see it ask for an API key, and basically in order to avoid that, I go in and I put the API through the magic of stopping and editing, and I put the API just to show it. Now, I did want it to be full screen, but at the end of the day, I didn't do that just because I didn't get into it. I just wanted to have a certain, color type, which was cool. Getwid actually had that. They had different colors for the maps, and I thought that that was very neat, rather than having the typical maps where you don't get to choose the color and it's just the standard color of the map itself. So we're nearing the end of this, and I'm about to give you my final thoughts on at the very end of this with Getwid and what I think of it after playing with it for some time and building out this website. So here we are at the end of the project, and after working on this, I mean, even though I only recorded basically like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes of footage, in all honesty, this project took me well over probably 2 or 3 hours of work, sitting down, writing out everything I wanted to do. It may not have turned out the way that I liked it to turn out, just because I was rushing to try and get something out where I had the full idea. And I could have spent more time thinking about the concept of the website itself. I did want to spend a little bit more time. But at the end of the day, it was just a test to build something with Getwid. And I was very impressed by the builder. I thought it was cool. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought. There was times where in the beginning when I first started playing with it, I didn't understand like the advanced header function. I had said that all throughout the video that I thought that the advanced header was amazing because when you realize what the header that Gutenberg currently has and the limitations that it has, it almost makes you want to take and go to WordPress and say, why don't you have something like this, like they do? But then at the end of the day, I guess that's the power of Gutenberg. Gutenberg, you can kind of mix and match the blocks. And this is a free block builder. So you could add it to your website with almost little or no impact to it, other than the fact that, of course, if you're adding something to it, that's going to add to your page sizes and things like that. But for the most part, I was very impressed by it. I liked it. It had a lot of options that you don't find in typical Gutenberg builders. It was very easy to navigate, something else that I liked about it. Some of the other builders I've found very cumbersome to navigate. They have options in certain other places, and this felt more like an Elementor style page builder, which was very cool. I do hope that they expand it in the future and come out with more advanced options. But I want to thank them for sponsoring this video because this was a great opportunity to just show off what they could do and everything that it can do and what you could do just building it. It's awesome that this is a free tool. Someone could take WordPress, install this, and boom, you've got a website up and going within little to no time. And that's really the power of what's happening now with Gutenberg and everything that's happening. It's changing the website, the way things work with this website. So, like I said, there's nothing to pimp out. This is a free tool. You can download it if you want. You know, do what you want. Go ahead and play with it. Try it out. Let me know in the comments below if you do download it, you liked it, or if you've been using it for some time and you're just catching on to it, or I'm just learning about it. Let me know. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say, and I hope you guys have a nice time. Later.